the beginning of this year, we set up Fallen Forest. And a part of Fallen Forest included the Aquarium Co-Op CO2 Regulator. So now that I've had this thing running for about half a year, let's talk about my impressions, what's good, what's bad, and whether or not this is something you should seriously consider if you're going to step into the world of CO2. Hello everyone, this is Bentley, and today we're going to talk about this bad boy, the Aquarium Co-Op CO2 Regulator. Now I've been using this thing for about 6 months or so now, and I did an initial impressions video where I talked about it, and I want to talk about my experience having had it in actual operation for quite a while. We've done a setup, we've talked about like the stiffness of the levers and things like that, about how you can control it. Those are all wonderful. But does that actually translate after months of use? The short answer, yes. But there's some caveats behind that. So when I was originally given the regulator, I was also given one of the Neo diffusers. We're going to pause this review real fast because I need to give you a disclosure. This piece of equipment, the CO2 regulator that we're about to talk about, was provided to me at no cost by the Aquarium Co-Op so that I could test it and do my own review. They have not had any influence as far as like what I'm allowed to say. They don't get to see this video ahead of time. I haven't been paid anything than been supplied the product. However, I am allowed to keep the product. So I want to make sure that those disclosures are out of the way and you understand that that's the case that's going on here. This has happened with a number of manufacturers in the past, and I never let it influence my reviews. If something is bad, I'm going to tell you. If something is good, well, I'm going to tell you. So with that being said, let's get into the review. This guy, right here. And you can tell by mine, it's seen some use, right? This has been an actual use. I've just pulled this off of my tank. And I want to talk about this combination as a kit, because this is what you can buy, if you're going to buy everything from one place from Co-Op, you're going to buy the regulator, you're going to buy the diffuser, and of course you'll buy your tank somewhere else. But if you're going to use those things, let me talk about my experience with this guy and how it impacts that regulator. Let's talk about all the positives first. The regulator is awesome, especially for its price point. It's been rock solid. I've been able to really dial in the amount of CO2 I want, and as an expandable manifold where you can run more and more, it's very easy to equalize those things if you start running CO2 to more than just one tank. Awesome. This is one of the most important things. If it's rock solid every time you start it up, every time you turn it off, it's got a solenoid, I'm using a Wi-Fi timer to control it, I never have to worry about that. Every time I come into my fish room and I just take a quick peek at it, it's exactly where I want it. Perfect. I've had other regulators in the past where I kind of have to monkey with them every once in a while. They don't stay rock solid the entire time. So having the Co-Op one, which comes in quite a bit cheaper than a lot of its quality level competition, be that rock solid is fantastic. Where my problems start coming in are this thing. Now granted, I'm using a different type of tubing. I'm using a stiffer tubing, very similar to what you would use in a standard like the CO2 proof tubing. And because it is designed like this, where there's no anchor piece here to really hold that tubing on, what I have found is that frequently, and this happens at least once a week, after about the first month. So as some kind of biofilm and stuff got on this, and I've cleaned it, I don't know how many times to try and prevent this, but it just happens as your natural biofilm builds up here, that line pops off. And then this thing is just sitting, doing nothing in my tank, when it should be diffusing CO2 for me. I don't like this thing. I don't like it at all. In fact, I'm changing mine out. I've struggled with this for months on end, trying to see if it was mostly user error. And outside of this, the only thing I could think of is switching to a more flexible tube instead of a stiffer tube, so similar to like the Aquarium Co-Op Airline. But I'm kind of a crazy person in that I want my airlines to be one type, and I want my CO2 lines, no matter where they are, to be a different type. So that anytime I'm looking at a line in my fish room, I know whether it's air or CO2. And I know I'm not the only one who's like that. So the fact that stiffer tubing, if you're going to be one of those like really persnickety people, and you're going to have CO2 proof tubing to run your CO2, might not be the best option with this, or maybe just my particular one is not doing so well for me. If I'd love to hear your comments down below about your personal experience if you've used one of these Neo diffusers. I've seen lots of feedback from people saying that like this ceramic disc is blown off. They never last more than about a year. I haven't experienced that. This keeps popping off of the tube, which is pretty annoying, which is why I'm going to switch to one of these. This does need to be cleaned a little bit. It came out of another tank, but this is an atomic style diffuser. So you can get these from like GLA, Nylock, G. There's lots of people, CO2 Art has a version of this. Lots of people sell a design like this, but the important part to me is this. Right here, where your line goes, similar to what we see in our CO2 regulator, there's a section here where you put your tube on and then you have this cap in the tube that locks it down in place with a stronger tension than just simple friction fit. And these things give a really, really solid bubble curtain. About the only thing that would be better is an inline reactor of some form, but I'm not trying to mess with the tubing on this thing. I'm going to be lazy in that regard. So this is going to be my upgrade over the Neo diffuser. Does that mean there's a problem with the CO2 regulator itself? Absolutely not. It's not the fault of the regulator. I'm controlling the pressure, I'm not overpressuring it, and I can overpressure with other types of diffusers, and that would blow the diffuser apart or off in other ways. So it's not that. It just happens to be that particular material that it's a type of plastic that that Neo diffuser is made from, and my particular line don't mesh and pop off. And I'm not a fan of that. And rather than buy like some crazy anchor thing to hold it in place, I'm just going to switch to something that has it built in so that I don't have to worry about that. Now, other than that, is there anything negative to say about the CO2 regulator from Aquarium Co-Op? Not really. Honestly, in my experience so far, and to be fair, I'm not pushing this to like its absolute maximum. I'm not doing like 5 tanks of CO2. I have some plans to push CO2 a little like wider in my fish room and really mess with that thing. So in probably another 6 months, we'll have another review that goes for like the long-term review. But this is just, after 6 months having 2 manifolds on this thing, it has been so rock solid that I have found myself not even visually checking until this stupid thing pops off, which is like once a week. So once a week I'm checking this because this Neo diffuser is coming off, and this bad boy's just firing away rock solid, not a problem in the world. Even when this is popped off, I'm not seeing any weird pressure issues in the regulator. The regulator has been perfect, honestly. I love the amount of tension in the gauges that allow you to adjust air pressure because it allows you to do very nice, minute adjustments. One of the biggest flaws in my GLA regulator, which granted that thing's about 6 years old now, is that they're a little looser. So I have to be very careful with my actual fingers and the amount of movement I do because it's easy to move too much. The tension, and this is present also in the CO2 art, just for clarity, with the one we did the initial comparison of, the tension that sits in the regulator and in its needle valves and even its primary pressure valve, right, are so good that they help you in the long run. I love that. And it hasn't changed the entire time I've been operating it. I've gone and messed with them on purpose to see if they've loosened up under pressure. No, they're fantastic. They're still plenty stiff. I can do those super fine tuning movements. And honestly, because the pressure is there, I can't like accidentally over torque it one way or the other and completely blow my system apart, right? And I love that. That is fantastic. That is a mark of quality build. And a lot of people will say, oh, it's built by company X or it's done by this in China. Man, so much stuff is manufactured in China. I don't stress about that. What I care about is the product quality testing that goes in before somebody brings that product as their product. And honestly, in the case of this regulator, it's good, dude. It's really good. I like it a lot. And honestly, I have an option to get another one, and I might. Just because it's been running so smoothly. So I love that fact, and I love the fact that I can very just effectively, mindlessly count on it. It's a set it and forget it. And I think that speaks very highly about our equipment. Anytime you can set your equipment up and basically forget about it for a month, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months. That's a positive. The only piece I can't count on is this dang thing, and I'm going to rectify that with an upgrade. And then we'll see if that exposes any flaws, but honestly, given my testing so far, I doubt it. I've had 2 tanks going at 2 different amounts. I've had a single tank running for several months in a row. It's all been fine. It's all done great and worked as I would expect. And you might say, Bentley, as you expect, doesn't sound like a very high bar. Sometimes in fish, man, as you expect is really hard to achieve. This bad boy, doing it with ease. I really like this thing. And for its price point, all the accessories you can buy with it are also cost efficient. It's not like some of the other brands that are out there that are like, oh yeah, you want an extra manifold? That's $50. Your regulator? $200. You know, you can get a really good kit to start for the cost of just the regulator to start from some other companies. And in the case of like GLA, which granted those things are built like tanks, they last forever. You could buy like 2 of these with the whole kit and be fine. But seriously, for its cost to get the level of quality that you're getting, I like this thing a lot. I really like it a lot. So that's my review. My review after basically 6 months of use is that so far in everything I've done in the fish room, and the setup video with it and stuff that'll be up in the corner, it has worked. It has worked fantastically well. It has worked fantastically well, and that's. It feels bad to say that, man, it's so great that it's worked exactly as I would hope it would. Because it's insane the state of a number of pieces of equipment in our hobby, especially things that like I like to dig myself into. Like, I can't tell you the number of filters or lights where I'm like, this seems like it should be really good. And then 6 months in, I'm like, oh, except for problems 1, 2, and 5. You know? Where with this, the problem has just been in this stupid little Neo diffuser, which granted, it's not expensive, so comparatively, like this versus this, I think these things, when I bought them, were like $50, where this is like, I don't know, 16 or something like that. So, okay, massive difference in price. You should expect a massive leap in quality, obviously. But in the case of the regulator itself, that thing is like $50 cheaper than its competition. I mean, I think that says it, right? This right here has worked as well as one of the best regulator manufacturers on the market for a third the price. And even for ones that I like CO2 Art, that are high quality and do a great job, this still performs almost exactly the same. The only difference might be that like the build quality is slightly different and heavier in the CO2 Art. So maybe over a very long period of time, we're talking 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years, you might see some differences. Maybe. We'll find out over time, because if eventually something fails, I'll tell you. But in a 6-month test, that's going to expose major problems, or places where the construction has cheaped out. None. Works like a charm. Love it. Probably getting another one. So that should tell you enough. Like, if I'm pondering another CO2 regulator, and I have a CO2 Art in my hands, but I'm thinking about getting another one of these, I feel like that should say enough. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, leave me a comment down below. Have you tried the Aquarium Co-Op Regulator? Have you not tried it? Do you have a different regulator that you really love? A regulator horror story you've had? Let me know in the comments down below. I'd love, love, love to hear your experiences, or even maybe just some of your questions you have to me about this particular piece of equipment. The only other thing I'd ask is, if you're not subscribed, consider subscribing. I do all sorts of reviews, tips, tricks. We'll probably be doing a fish room tour relatively soon after I get some other tanks going. But I do a ton of fish-related content, pretty much a video every week. There's been, like, I think only once where I haven't released a video. I've been doing this for like 5 years. So weekly content, weekly live streams. subscribe, ring that little notification bell, and as always, thank you so much for watching, and stay awesome.